Hello and welcome back to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal coverage with me, your host Mark. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you are doing really, really well. And today I'm going to answer the question, is Eberechi Eze better for Arsenal than Rodrygo from Real Madrid? Now, these rumours are flying around all over the place at the moment, right? We've been in for Rodrygo for ages, but now Eze has entered the party. We've had that break this week, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think he could be a slightly better option for Arsenal. I'm not saying he's necessarily a better player. I think that's a long, long debate where we probably have to do a lot of analysis and a lot of comparison between the two. But today I'm going to work out why he might be a better fit for Arsenal. Before I get into that, thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and maybe for the first time watching this on YouTube. This is my first first effort at having a video on myself. So thank you so much if you've clicked on the YouTube video, or if you're watching on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're watching. I really really appreciate it. If you enjoy this video, do consider leaving a 5-star review on the audio platforms. And I guess like and subscribing if you are watching on YouTube really, really makes the world a difference. And I'm on a mission to get Arsenal Unfiltered into the ears of as many Arsenal fans as possible. So please do help me out if you enjoy this video. So Eberechi Eze, like I said, the rumours are out, £68 million release clause, being linked with Arsenal all the time. He is an Arsenal boy, originally from our academy. We let him go, and he's spoken before about how tough that was for him to be let go by a club I think he supports and calls his own, just as we all do. But he has obviously gone and made a massive career for himself at Palace and scored the winning goal in the FA Cup final last year. This is a player who I think can go right to the very top if he gets a big move in the next few years. He's 27 now. He needs probably to take a move towards Champions League football very, very quickly. He has, of course, seen his mate Michael Elise go to Bayern Munich over the last summer and just explode there. You know, when he's got better players around him, Michael Elise has flourished. It could be the same for Eberechi Eze this year. He's been linked for Arsenal, I think, for the left wing spot. That's where we're really looking to improve. And you look at Eze's heat map from last year, he played a lot on that left-hand side, and he's done that for England as well in his limited appearances. So yeah, I think this is a good fit for Arsenal. He could also provide Odegaard backup, but I think that's a different discussion from what I'm talking about here today. Really, this is that comparison with Rodrygo and maybe Martinelli as well. Well, no, definitely Martinelli. 26 goals and assists last year in all comps, including massive goals in that FA Cup run, like I mentioned. One more than Saka managed. Yes, Saka was out for a long time, but if we can get a player who contributes to a similar level as Saka does on the left-hand side, I think we are in for a real treat. I'm going to flash some stats up here on this side if I can make that work. But I want to just kind of highlight too that I think are really important for Eberechi Eze and how he might fit in at Arsenal. 92nd percentile across Europe's big five leagues for shots per 90. We are, I wouldn't say we're shot shy, but I think we sometimes dally a little bit, and it's nice to see us linked with a player who likes to get shots off early, who likes to take a chance, really. And we'll come on to that a little bit more about where he's finished from. 8 goals in the Premier League last year. Same as Martinelli. Very different goals, though, and I'll show you that in a bit. He's also the 86th percentile for successful take-ons. So, look, he's very different to Martinelli. Pace is not his primary weapon, but he is still an exceptional dribbler, and he's going to get round people in a slightly different way. Martinelli is about kind of knocking it past them and moving through and getting in behind into space. Eze, not so much. I mean, he can do that. It's not his primary weapon, but he can do that. He's about skill. He can take players on, and he does a really good job of that. And this is where my kind of comparison with Rodrygo starts to come in. I think Martinelli and Rodrygo are very similar players. You know, if you watch highlights of Rodrygo, he just feels like what we all thought Martinelli might become. And he picks up a lot of very similar spaces, and he also does it's uncanny, really. You watch him dribble at players and you think that's Martinelli, but with a bit more juice, a bit more swaz, a bit more skill about him. It's very different when you watch Eze, and he dribbles in a slightly different way. And Arsenal face a lot of low blocks. We saw that a lot last year. One example that I keep picking out in my brain is the 0-0 versus Everton. I'll throw up Martinelli's touch map around here for you to see. you can see from Martinelli's touch map how many touches he was getting in that kind of right in line with the penalty area spot. And he was picking the ball up there a lot. And unfortunately, not having any space to run into, him and Rodrygo both like to have space to run into. Even if there is a player in front of them, I think that both of those players would rather pick the ball up 10, 15 yards in front of the penalty area and get some speed up before they take their man on at right fullback or the right centre back, whoever's covering them. They want to have a run at them. Whereas Eze is slightly different. When you watch him, he can pick the ball up. And rather than having to get up to speed, he is one of these players who, you don't recognize him for his speed immediately, but he's got a fantastic change of direction. And I think that is something that's really, really important. That kind of pace is not his primary skill for Eze, and Rodrygo and Martinelli both use that kind of space, the 10, 15 yards in front of a player or behind a player if the ball's right, to get up to speed, set the player one way and then go the other way. Eze can do that off a dime. He doesn't need that acceleration period, and I think that's a really, really key thing when you're looking at how do we break down a low block. And a great example of Eze and how he does this is his goal for England versus Latvia. Look, the opposition are not great in this example, okay? I fully accept that. But he got to a position where we've seen Martinelli so many times this year. He's got defenders low against him. They've backed off into their box. And usually for Martinelli, he's looking to kind of jink one way or the other. And we've seen him a lot start to go down the left and try and clip a ball in with his left foot. There isn't too much of the kind of send them one way, send them the other, send them the other, and Eze in this goal against Latvia, he's driven players back to the position that we see Martinelli faced up with, but he suddenly just explodes into this kind of barrage of skill and individuality with step overs and kind of slight movements, whereas a Rodrygo or a Martinelli, they're looking for, can I kick it past them? And there's not that much room to go past them. I accept that Rodrygo is probably better at that than Martinelli. He's probably better at the Eze stuff than Martinelli. But I guess my main point is he different enough? Is he different enough to Martinelli to make that worthwhile? Or is he just a slightly better Martinelli who's going to play in very similar styles and come up against very similar issues that Martinelli has come up against, which may be a player who's a bit more like Eze, who doesn't use his pace so much and is more of a kind of first 2-3 yards acceleration, explosiveness, ability to change direction, as opposed to a full speed player. Is that an opportunity to have a different style in the team and maybe unlock some of those low blocks that were a real issue for us? I'm going to throw up another reason that I think this is really, really important why Eze is a fantastic fit for Arsenal. It's the Gabriel Martinelli and Eze shot maps. Here's the Gabriel Martinelli one first. You can see there's a lot in the 6-yard box. And we know Martinelli does these. He's very, very good at chasing things in. He is so determined, who does a really, really good job of working very, very hard for the team. And he finishes a lot in that kind of 6-yard area. Now I'll throw up the Eze one. And you can see, like I mentioned earlier, he was 92nd percentile for shots per 90, but actually he's scoring goals from kind of further out. And I think this is a really important thing for Arsenal, because whilst Martinelli managed 4 in the 6-yard box, there's very little space there for Arsenal most of the time because of how deep players play. If we can have an Eze who's maybe finishing from further out and actually takes a lot more shots from further out, I think his average shot distance is higher than Martinelli's. That could be another weapon for us. How do you break down a low block? Well, you either manage to jink your way through them, which is individual skill. It's Martin Odegaard twisting and turning. It's maybe Eze twisting and turning. It's Saka putting in a perfect cross onto Kai Havertz's head. But then another way is just to go through it with the ball and just shoot past them and score from distance and score from a bit of range. These Eze goals are not like, he's not banging them in from 30 yards every week. But actually what he is doing, if you ignore the penalty one, what he is doing is he's taking quality shots from further out than Martinelli is. And it's the same number of goals in the league last year from very different positions. And I think it's really, really important to remember that actually sometimes we've been looking at Arsenal and just wanted them to just shoot. Like, please just shoot. And Eze might be a player who can do that a little bit more than Martinelli. Can he do it a little bit more than Rodrygo? Well, Rodrygo is very much a facsimile for Martinelli. I think those two players are very, very similar. So I reckon he would do it a little bit more. So it's a really interesting one to think of. I guess in conclusion, Rodrygo's a bit of an upgrade in Martinelli. Now, I'm not going to say no to that. But do we need a new option? Do we need a new style? Arteta has this preference. If you listen to previous episodes, I think he has a preference for multiple styles in the same position. And you can see that across a lot of the squad. Left back's a great example. We've got Miles Lewis-Skelly, just signed his 5-year deal. He is a controller, a ball manipulator, a progressor of the ball with his passing, and does a fantastic job of controlling play, kind of playmaking. Whereas Calafiori is a completely different option altogether. I don't think playmaking is his strength, but being a marauding runner, driving forward with the ball, getting on the overlap, and being an agent of chaos, I guess is a great way to put Calafiori. That's two completely different styles that Arteta values, I think. He likes to have those options. Same at right back, Ben White, more expansive, more aggressive, loves to go round the side and provide a really good attacking option. Timber's a bit more secure. He probably doesn't go around the side quite so much. He supports in the midfield a little bit more when we're in possession as opposed to supporting the final third. So look, I think this could be another scenario where we're looking at the two possible deals. Rodrygo for whatever it is now, 90 million, 80 million. I've lost track. On a separate note, I am kind of bored of all this kind of in the know kind of reporting about Sesko and Rodrygo and Gyökeres. What's the price? Is it being slashed? We just need to wait for a bid to go in, I think, and we'll find out whereabouts these negotiations are going. But yeah, so I think Rodrygo, his style is so similar to Martinelli. Could it be that Arteta's looking at Eze and going, this is a completely different style? Rodrygo is a fantastic player. I really think we could do a lot worse than sign him, and I would love it if we signed him. But if you buy Eze, you get different styles, different options, and you get a player who doesn't need that 10, 15 yards to get up to speed. You get a player who can receive the ball standing still and create something from nothing. And that is something we've needed so much against those low blocks. Why not give ourselves the option? I think Martinelli still has a role to play in this squad. I think Martinelli as well was showing signs at the end of last season that he might get back to his best. He was playing a lot better. Could we be in a position next year where Martinelli steps his level up, gets 5 or 6 more goals and assists in games where we are given a bit more space and he does have that 10, 15 yards to get up to speed. And then you add an Eze who can help us beat the low blocks. My worry would be if you add a Rodrygo in there, you have two of the same players, one slightly better than the other, and actually you don't have a stylistic swap to get round low blocks or very difficult games that just are not going your way. Eze could add that. Okay, guys, I'm going to leave that there. That's why I think Eze might be a really, really good fit for Arsenal. Like I said at the start, if you've enjoyed this episode or any episode, please consider leaving a 5-star review if you're listening on audio format, or liking and subscribing if this is the kind of YouTube video that you're watching, maybe with your Sunday morning coffee or something like that. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for following. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you very, very soon.